Hi, my name is Megan Wallace, and I'm here with the Rocky Mountain Raptor program today. And today I want to talk to you about some important raptor behavior, but first I just want to introduce our program. The Rocky Mountain Raptor program is located in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we serve the northeastern part of Colorado as well as other parts of other states such as Wyoming and Nebraska. And we help injured raptors. So when people bring birds to us that have been hurt in some way, we do everything we can to give them a second chance at their freedom and to rehabilitate them and let them back out in the wild. We also have a team of educational ambassadors, one of which you'll see here today, that are non-releasable birds. These are birds who their injuries were not able to be treated in such a way that they could be released back into the wild. They were basically permanently disabled, and so they do live their lives out with us and help us to teach you guys about different things about raptors and the spaces that they share with us. So today I have with me this little American kestrel. He is a very special bird. He came to us in 2012 with some neurological deficits, and that was suspected to be and then confirmed to be West Nile virus. And West Nile virus causes the brain to swell, and so it can leave some neurological damage as well as some other sorts of brain damage. And for him, it also caused some vision loss. So he is blind in his right eye and does have some vision loss in his left eye, but he manages quite well enough to see his food, and so he is one of our favorite birds here. You notice I'm referring to him as a he. One of the reasons that we know that is that kestrels are what we call sexually dimorphic by color or feather pattern. And so this guy has some blue on his wings and on his back and on the top of his head, as well as this kind of speckled pattern on his belly. And that does differ from the way that a female kestrel looks. They are more brown and have a little more streaking on their bellies. And so it is clear to be able to tell the difference, which is not true of all raptors. So this little guy, like I said, came to us in 2012. He was a nestling at the time, so he's lived with us for almost his whole life. And yeah, you can often see kestrels out in the wild by noticing, you may watch, as you're watching him today, you may notice him doing some little tail bobbing. And that is often a great way to notice kestrels out in the wild, up on light poles and wires and that sort of thing. The other thing that I want to talk to you guys about today before we get started is our very virtual Vulture Gala that we are going to be hosting. We are going to be starting the silent auction opens on February 1st. So you can go in, log in, and start looking at items and seeing what you want to bid on. The actual event kicks off on the 14th. That's when the live auction items open. And then we're going to be live streaming on the 20th. That'll be on YouTube as well, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And then we will have the silent bidding will close the next day. The live bidding closes that evening at 7 p.m. So we're going to have a lot of awesome things for you to check out, a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, showing you some of what our rehab team does, what our education team does, meeting some of our ambassadors, especially our very special turkey vulture will be making an appearance. And there will be a lot of educational information about what we do and that sort of thing. So definitely check it out. Registration is required. So check out our Facebook page or our website for more information on the very virtual Vulture Gala. So today I wanted to talk to you about some important raptor behavior that I think sometimes gets a little misunderstood. And that is the distinction and also kind of some explanation of the difference between aggression and predation. So first we're going to talk a little bit about aggression. This is something, the definition of aggression is hostile or violent behavior or attitudes toward another, readiness to attack or confront, the action or act of attacking without provocation. And the reason that I like to bring up that definition is because I think a lot of times what we perceive as wild animals being aggressive is actually much more defensive. It happens when they're threatened. They don't see it as attacking without provocation, because it generally requires some sort of provocation for them to do that. And that's because aggression is a very energetically costly behavior. It's something that it is very risky. They can become injured. And this is, what people refer to as fight or flight. This is the fight in fight or flight. So this is really reserved for situations where they feel like they are in danger, and they are just trying to protect themselves, their territory, their young. So those sorts of things are not, wild animals aren't doing these things because they're angry or they're mean or, trying to ruin someone else's day. It really is all about protecting themselves. So often we might refer to that as like defense or defensive aggression, because really most of those aggressive displays do have to do with territorial disputes, fights over resources such as food, and defense against being attacked. And so a lot of aggressive behavior, like I said, it's a very energetically costly behavior, so they try not to do it. And so a lot of aggression in all wild animals is very kind of performative and ritualistic. They do a lot of things that the intent is not necessarily to mortally injure the other, but to basically to kind of show who's the biggest, baddest bird in this case, with some ritualistic displays. And so it's also important to realize that not all aggression is intended to do, bodily harm long term. It really is just to protect themselves or a specific resource in that moment. And we refer to aggression as what we call a distance increasing behavior, where the animal wants the other being to go away. And the reason I bring this up is because this is actually the opposite from predation, which we'll get into a little bit. And predation is actually a distance decreasing behavior. They want to close the gap between themselves and their prey, and get as close as possible so that they are able to grab them. So predation refers to, hunting behavior. Raptors are obligate carnivores. This means that they must eat meat in order to survive. They can't survive off of any other sort of food source other than meat. And in the catching of their prey, they go through the predatory sequence, which is common amongst all predators, where they first orient to their prey. Then they, kind of zone in and stalk it for a little bit to make sure they know exactly where it is. And then they will give chase, grab, kill, consume the prey item. Even little bitty falcons like this kestrel here, they are expert mouse hunters, as well as other small prey and even some small songbirds and that sort of thing. And so they really are mighty little hunters, even though they seem very small. They go through that same predatory sequence. And predation is not the same as aggression. Like I said, they are trying to get closer to the prey animal in order to catch them, so that they can eat them to survive. And a lot of, I would say most attacks that happen on domestic animals by raptors can be directly related to predation rather than aggression. They are not, just trying to attack them for no reason. They probably are in a situation where their prey base is very narrow. A lot of human developments and that sort of thing reduce their prey base, and so they may become more desperate and go after, small pets or chickens or something like that. The one exception to that, I will say, is that domestic cats attack very large numbers of birds, wild birds, in kind of alarming numbers. And so if there was an attack, especially on a small raptor like this kestrel here, and they fought back, that would be considered, defensive aggression. But pretty much any time you hear of animals, domestic animals being preyed upon by raptors, it does have to do with predation. They're just trying to look for a meal so that they can survive. And the reason that I started thinking about this is that there's a video that's going around on social media labeled something about like giving the underdog a chance. And in the video, you can see a juvenile red-tailed hawk who's just caught a rabbit. And it looks like it's in like a shopping center parking lot or something like that, and people are videoing. And the person holding the camera steps a little bit closer to the hawk, and what happens is that the hawk flies away and ends up dropping the meal, the rabbit that it had caught, and the rabbit is still alive, and it runs off, and everyone thinks, yay, we saved this poor little prey animal from this vicious predator. And when I saw that video, my first thought is, the underdog is really the juvenile red-tailed hawk. Their numbers of survival in their first year are incredibly low. There is a lot of challenges out there for them in the environment that they have to overcome. They have to struggle to hunt. They are dealing with territorial disputes with older hawks. And the rate that they reproduce is much, much lower than a rabbit. And so really, when you're looking at who the underdog is in this situation, it absolutely is that juvenile red-tailed hawk. And so that just made me think that a lot of times people misinterpret what they see in terms of aggressive behavior, in this case predatory behavior, from the raptors that share our space. There are a lot of instances where humans and wild animals come in contact with each other. There have been a couple of instances recently here in Larimer County of mountain lion sightings. Those come around, fairly frequently, and there have been some mountain lion attacks. I learned that more than 100 encounters with black bears were reported in Larimer County. 2 black bears did have to be euthanized for encounters with humans. And really, I bring these up because in these situations, these animals are in a stressful situation because they have come too close in contact with humans, and they are reacting defensively. They are trying to protect their space, themselves, possibly their young. And it's important that we remember that we have come into the space where they previously occupied. And so for us to interpret that as, that they're just being terrible, aggressive wild animals isn't really fair to them, because they are really feeling like they need to fight for their survival in that moment. In terms of raptors and humans, there are definitely several reports of certain owls, like great horned owls, as well as barred owls, attacking, kind of swooping down on humans when they come close to their nests and their territories. But in a lot of these cases, it really is kind of sensationalized, that people make it out to sound like this very scary thing, and in most cases, there's not even any contact made. They kind of swoop down over just as a warning. Again, a lot of times this aggression is very ritualized. They're not trying to get themselves into a situation where they could potentially be hurt or killed. They are just trying to do their best to warn you to stay out of their space. And so it's really important when you do see wildlife out there that you give them their space. The general rule of thumb that we give, especially to people who are out there birding or taking wildlife photography, is if you are close enough that the animal notices you, that means that they turn and orient to you. That is too close. You need to take a step back and give them some space, because we do not want them to ever feel like they're in a threatened position, not even just so that they don't attack, but also so that they don't fly off, maybe leaving their young, or just not have a chance to settle enough to digest a meal, feel like they can hunt. Those sorts of things are all things that happen when people take a really strong interest in certain wildlife that they see out and about, and they get a little too close for that animal's comfort. So I really have enjoyed talking to you guys about raptor behavior today. I think it's very important that we understand what's going on with these guys, so that we can really respect and admire them, rather than seeing them as, attacking our our domestic animals, or being aggressive for no reason. That they are really just out there trying to do their best to survive. And we hope that you enjoyed seeing our wonderful little American kestrel today. He's a very special little bird. They're showing you his tail bobs like you might see him do out in the wild. And it is really important to remember how important raptors are in our ecosystems and why it's important to protect them. That's why we do what we do here at the Rocky Mountain Raptor Program, where we see, possibly up to 300 birds in a year that come in needing our help. And our goal is always to get them out and be able to give them a second chance at freedom so that they can go on and reproduce and start their own families and continue the populations. So we really thank you for being here and watching our talk today. We hope you'll join us next Wednesday at 4 o'clock on YouTube Live. Again, don't forget about our virtual gala. I won't try to say the full name again because it is a little bit of a tongue twister. But check out our website or our social media for more information on that. And we thank you for being here, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.